Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'm going to be designing a Botanical Garden module in Studio. Let's go over the design features and put something together.
Hello there.
Let's dive right into the features on this one. This model is a bit of a trip back in time for me. It's one of the first digital builds I made and ordered parts to complete. It's a remock of the popular LEGO Friends Botanical Garden set 41757 from a few years back. Of course, I'm not the first person to do a build like this, but I wanted to include it at the start of my city, given how much of this journey it kicked off and how much I learned, but I did make a few unique choices. One early design choice was to maintain facade consistency throughout. I'm going to close the structure in with the same sand green and white window treatment as the main building sections. In my experience, indoor gardens typically have a good amount of plant life on the outside of the building as well, so I want to include some connection points for exterior foliage or vines somewhere. I'm also going to make the second story dome section removable as a modular floor would be. On the interior, in addition to tiling the floor, I want to increase the plant density if possible and just improve the overall look of the beds in general. Finally, I want to create some form of motion for all the butterflies inside. My hometown has a butterfly garden that I'm using for some inspiration here, and I wanted to try to create the idea of fluttering butterflies moving inside the space like that place has. And with those in mind, let's get started. For starters, this is going to be longer than previous videos because it's a full building and not just foundational infrastructure. But this module is going to be placed in the valley of the city, so I'm starting my mills work with a regular base plate. This build doesn't have a lot built down into the mills work, so the base is pretty simple. The only inset parts are the basins of the two water features. One decision I made was to remove the koi pond. The enlarged footprint of the building didn't allow the size of pond I wanted to make. I did decide to make the bottom of one of the water features open to the adjacent module and plan to put the pond there instead. I'm using green plate around the exterior of the building. I want the valley to feel more like a city park type of area. The changes from the original set really do begin early on. I already have a plan for the plant beds, and I'm adjusting how the initial modified tiles go down for that. I'm using the 2x2 modified tiles with 2 studs in some places as well to fit the floor plan, but keep the exterior look. And as I'm starting to fill in the floor pattern, I always remember to leave a handful of studs for minifigures and accessories. I'm adding some studs around the main area. This will give me space to attach the central tree in the middle and a bench around its base. I added a second door to access the back courtyard as well. Here's where I started my improvements on the plant beds. The first update was to use reddish brown tiles and modified plates as the underlying color to look a little more like dirt. I also placed some extra studs for denser plants and additional details. I used some round 1x1 light gray tiles for garden stones and green stems as decorative grasses throughout the different beds. This is where LEGO's design starts to take over. The window treatments on this set really were outstanding for the building it's meant to be. In my opinion, there wasn't a lot to improve on here. Over top of the windows, however, I wanted to find a way to keep the light nougat accent line more consistent around the entire building. I used rounded plates and rounded tiles for the corners to make this happen. Neither of these pieces were included in the set, so most remocks and supersized builds weren't able to have this minor detail. This is a good example of where I learned how I could take things further, and about the time I started to think of an entirely custom-built city. While a large part of this design does come from a set build, the small details in Bricklink Studio often felt more tedious and cumbersome with an instructed goal in mind. A lot of putting the plants down for me was getting used to how to place details like this in a digital environment. After some practice, it wasn't so bad actually. One tip I will offer for those starting out with Bricklink Studio is to do the initial building with collisions turned off. Collision detection can make positioning pieces very difficult while figuring out your build. I found it a lot easier to build first, and then enable collisions at the end to find any positioning flaws. This was particularly important for the plant pieces with all their unique shapes and orientations. As I was putting together the inside arch of the skylight, I decided to include some green connection points for exterior vines up one corner of the building. Just an open stud and a bar halfway up the side. I wasn't quite clear on how I was going to build these vines yet, so I'm only adding the connection points for now. Once the first floor is tiled off and I've put in the last couple of details, I can move on to the dome's second story. Since my second story is fully modular, I was able to add a layer of plate around the bottom to secure the whole structure better. This also gave me room to securely attach the fountain platforms to the second story window. Before putting the dome glass in place, I needed a free-floating connector for the top of the 4 panels. This was also going to be the base of my butterfly motion feature, so I used double stacks of 1x2 rounded plates, connected in a circle with those funky diagonal tiles that have rounded cutouts on either side. I put 2 claw clips through the open studs, and this small assembly holds the 4 panels together at the top with the clips, and leaves room for a 2x2 rounded brick through the middle. The final part of the building is the cap of the dome that will also serve as the butterfly's motion feature. I'm putting a couple of 2x2 round bricks through the hole and attaching them to the dish over top of the dome. I used a Technic pin and axle connector to add a 4-sided clip piece with a butterfly positioned off of each clip. This assembly should spin freely by rotating the dish above. The top of the dish is then finished up much like the original set build. I chose to use the spear tip piece instead to give it a nice spired look. I added the potted plants included in the original set build around the building exterior for some basic detailing. The fountains on the second story water features were also kept. Thought I was finished, but realized I never did add the garden placards or central tree to the build. The bench around the base of the tree is pretty simple. I used cattail pieces on headlight bricks for decorative armrests. The placards are the same as the original set build, and finally the central tree. This was a lot like the other plans in that it was more about getting better at working within the software. Even when time-lapse, the process isn't quick, but it did get easier the further along I got. The basic design of the tree is based on the one included in the set build, it's just a little more filled out for the space. Here's the finished model. It's the first building design that's going into the city and really was the first step in this whole process. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to keep up with progress. I'll be back soon with another one. Thanks so much. Keep on building. Bye for now.